Hi, welcome to the virtual orientation for the 262RL Super Lite by Starcraft. We're going to begin the orientation on the outside of the RV, and we're going to begin at the front. First thing that we'll look at is your front pass-through storage compartment. In this compartment, we will find your crank for the stabilization jacks, or this bit here that can fit in your drill that will also work with the stabilization jacks. This crank here will also work to operate your electric tongue jack manually. So as we drop down, we can take a look at one of 4 stabilization jacks. They're located on the 4 corners of your RV. They should be used to snug your RV up to your ground or whatever blocking you have. They should never be used to level the RV. The RV should be fully level. You engage the stabilization jacks. Now, as far as blocking goes, I would usually recommend 6x6 blocks. They're easy to store, easy to take with you, and they usually do the trick. You only need to use them if you run out of travel with the jack, and that usually will only happen if you are on some fairly uneven ground. So just keep that in mind. As we make our way towards the front, we're going to pause and take a look at your side marker light here. Now you may notice there's a bit of an extra camera body on here, and that is because both side marker lights at the front are pre-wired for a side view camera. Now the side view cameras can work in conjunction with the optional rear view camera, and I just want to point out that these are optional. They come pre-wired for the camera, but they do not come with the camera. So if you are interested in them, please ask, and someone would be happy to help you get some more information on them. Now, as we continue along the front of the RV, we'll make note of your battery storage area. And directly in front of your battery storage, we have your propane storage system. This unit comes with 2 30-pound bottles connected with a crossover regulator. Now what the crossover regulator will do, as you can see, the handle is pointing in this direction. That means it's going to pull from this tank first, or draw from this tank first. Once this tank drops below a predetermined amount of pressure, and that is determined by the regulator and isn't adjustable, once this drops below the predetermined amount of pressure, it will automatically cross over and draw from this tank, regardless of where the handle is pointing. What that means is you don't have to get out on a cold night and manually switch the bottles over, which is very handy. And then in front of our propane system, we have your electric tongue jack. Now earlier I'd shown you in the front storage compartment that we have a crank that can be used with your front tongue jack. In order to do so, remove this stopper here, and there's a nut inside that you can use to crank the jack up and down in the event that you lose the electric option. You can also see that we have a light that would be good for loading at night, as well as switching to extend or retract the jack. Also in this front area, we have your safety breakaway switch. Your safety breakaway switch is connected to the tow vehicle via the loop end. In the event that the 2 vehicles become separated, this pin will be pulled free of the housing, engaging the trailer brakes. Now I have seen it a time or two where this gets stepped on or pulled slightly while you're hitching up or while you're doing something else around the RV, and the pin is pulled out of the housing but not fully. Just enough to engage the brakes, but not enough to make it easily visible. So if you do have any symptoms of your brakes sticking on or not functioning the way you think they should, just take a quick look and make sure that pin is firmly seated into the housing here. Continue to make our way along the RV here. We'll make note on the off-door side at the front we have some switching, and that would be for your front running light right here. If we open up your off-door side of your front storage compartment, we'll notice the spray hose with a quick connect, I'll show you what and where you can use this in a little bit. And then we have your 30 amp power cord. Basically, you'll plug this end into the 30 amp receptacle on your house or at the RV park. And the other end is the 30 amp end that we connect at the trailer side. Now, I realize that most people do not actually have a 30 amp receptacle on the outside of their home. So if that is you, which it will be for most of you, or if you are camping somewhere and they just don't have a 30 amp site available, we will provide you with a conversion block to convert the 30 amp plug-in into a 15 amp plug-in. That way you can use the receptacles on the outside of your home or a 15 amp receptacle at a RV park and still get some power. You will be unable to run everything, most notably your AC, but you'll be able to have some power. As we continue our way along, the next thing we'll come to is your black and gray water output. You can see you have your black water valve handle here and your gray water valve handle here. It's usually recommended that you empty the black water first and then flush out everything with the gray water by emptying it last. As we continue along the outside of the RV, we'll just make note of the venting free refrigerator. It's important that this remains obstruction free at all times, as maximum airflow is needed for proper functioning of the fridge. So continue along the outdoor side of the vehicle. We come to your docking station. First thing I'll make note of is this handy little kickstand. We're going to use it now. Keep the door open for you. So earlier in the front storage compartment there, I showed you that quick connect spray nozzle. Well, this is where you connect that, or one of two places you can connect it. Connect it here and use it like a shower or a tap or just the spray hose that it is. Also in this area we have your main input for the cable or satellite TV right here. We have a connection point for your black tank flush. It's very important that if you're going to use the black tank flush, that you are fully connected to the sewer system for your sewage, that the black water valve is open, and that the tank is ready to empty into the sewage system of wherever you're emptying it. And once the black valve is open and everything's ready to go, everything's connected, then you can hook the garden hose up to here, turn the water on, and it will flush out the tank for you. Right next door here we have your city water connection or your tank fill connection. This uses the same connection point here to fill your fresh tank or to serve as a city water connection. And how you differentiate that is with this diverter valve here. So at the moment the valve handle is in the vertical position. That would indicate that we are ready for a city water connection. So what you do is you connect your garden hose here, turn on the tap for the garden hose, whether from the campground or your house, and that essentially acts as the city water connection of your house and pressurizes the RV system. From there you can run everything inside the RV much like you would everything in your home. Now if you're to turn that valve handle in this position, that would set you up for a tank fill, meaning it's going to fill your freshwater tank. You'd fill your freshwater tank if you're going somewhere that there isn't a water supply, or if you're camping in a campground that maybe has a water supply but it's not potable and you might want to have cleaner or drinkable water in your water system of your RV. Right next to the docking station we have your 30 amp power connection point. This is where you'd hook that 30 amp cord that I showed you earlier, and then connect the other end to the 30 amp receptacle in the RV park or your home. So we come completely around the back of the RV here. We'll make note of the ladder access to the roof, as well as the rear view camera body. For your pre-wired rear view camera, the camera is not included like the side view cameras. It is pre-wired though, so it's easy to install. Now, the side view and rear view cameras can be used or are used in conjunction with a head unit that can be plugged into the 12-volt system of the tow vehicle, so you can monitor the cameras while in transit. And as we come full circle here, we've almost covered everything on the outside that we're going to cover. We'll make a few more notes here. We'll point out the two speakers underneath your awning. They can be used with the stereo inside the RV, and I'll show you a little bit more on that in a bit. Here we have your range vent. Now we have this flapper on your range vent that prevents cold air, or I guess critters, birds, anything from getting in there. I would always close it when you're not using it. However, when you're going to use it, you just want to pop these little tabs out here, and it's easy to do. There, in, now it's open. It's not too hard. Just make sure you pop that open when you're going to use it, and pop it closed if you are concerned about either airflow or any pests getting in. So almost directly below that we have your second spray port that I showed you before. You can plug that quick connect spray hose right in there. Just be aware when you do so, there is no shut off here, so the water will flow directly to the spray nozzle there. So if you don't have the spray handle on the end of that spray hose, the water, as soon as you connect it, will just come right out. We have a 120 volt power supply under the awning, and we also have the outside access to your hot water heater. You will notice that we have a few important things that we're going to look at. We have your reset. You push the buttons to reset the water heater if it doesn't light. And we have your pressure relief valve here, and your drain plug or anode rod here. If you're removing the drain plug to drain the hot water heater of water, or you're winterizing, or for whatever reason, always make sure you open the pressure relief valve first. As its name states, it relieves the pressure in the tank, and what that prevents is this shooting out at you like a rocket. We don't want anybody wounded, so always make sure you open this first. And then the last thing we'll mention on the outside here, I always like to make note, the exhaust for your furnace is here. It does get hot when in use. I know that kind of stands to reason, but I like to make special note when the exhaust is under the awning, as there is a bigger chance or a greater chance that you might come in contact with it. So just be aware that it does get hot enough that you don't want anybody touching it, especially kids. All right, I think that wraps up our tour of the outside. Let's open the door and we'll go inside and take a look. So the first thing we'll notice when we step inside and turn around is your fire extinguisher. It's always important to know where your safety equipment is in case you need it. You don't want to be looking for it when you need it. You just want to know where it is. And I like the positioning just inside the door, so it's handy and accessible from outside the RV if you're cooking outside, but it is also handy and accessible for cooking inside. So directly up from there, just inside the door, we have a couple other things. We have your slide control for in and out, extension and retraction of your slide. We have the controls to extend or retract your awning. We have switching for the main lights of the RV and for your awning lights. And then directly above that we have your indication panel that will give you levels for your battery, for your fresh, black and gray water tanks. We also have switching for your water pump, for your water heater on gas, and your water heater on electric. This couch does fold out into a bed. You just remove the cushions and then simply pull it up from the back, and it pulls out into a bed. It's pretty easy to do, just a little hard to do one-handed when filming. Well, we're kind of talking about the safety equipment there. We talked about your fire extinguisher. We'll just make quick mention of the emergency exit. So the main area of the RV, you have the emergency exit behind the dinette here. It's simply two red latches, one on either side of the window, and it just pops right open. No need to worry about a screen. The whole window just hinges out and you may escape to safety. Take a minute to talk about a few things in this area here. We have a safety strap for when traveling. It just makes sure that the TV stays in place. Now the bracket for the TV mount is pretty stiff and probably won't move, but it's always a good idea to be more safe than sorry. Also in this area, we have the stereo for the RV. Now earlier on when we were looking at the outside, I had made mention of the speakers under the awning. Well, this soundbar is what you will use to operate those speakers as well as the speakers inside. So in order to use the speakers outside, we'll look at the zones 1 and 2. Zone 1 is the inside of the RV and zone 2 is the outside. So you can play both zones together or either separately. This soundbar or stereo also offers HDMI connectivity, USB charging, as well as an auxiliary port. As we move our way further into the RV, we'll take a look at your range and stove combo here. One thing that you want to be aware of, before you ever try to light this, always open the glass. And before you move the RV, always make sure you close the glass. In order to light the stove, we must turn to the light position and then turn the sparking knob. We'll do the same thing for each of the top burners, and then to light the oven you do the same thing, except one, always open the oven first. The only difference here is you must press and hold the knob in while turning the sparker knob. No need to hold your barbecue lighter to the pilot, just press and hold and turn the sparker. So we'll drop down here and just make a mention of the location of your load center. This is where you'll find the breakers, much like you'd see in your home, and they function the same way. And the fuses, much like you might see in your vehicle, and again, they operate pretty much the same way. Now, these fuses are good. If there is a problem with one of them, you will see a red LED light that lights up beside it, giving you an indication of where the problem may be. While we're down here, I'll pivot to my left and look under the sink cupboard here. And this is where we're going to find access to the back of your hot water tank. Now, I gained access to the back of your hot water tank via this board here. It was a red Robertson screw I had to remove. I did that ahead of time just to make it a little easier. So the reason why we would want to be in here is for these valves here. Right now they're pointing in towards the tank. That would indicate the water is going to flow through the tank. If we turn the valve handles in the other position, like this, they're in line with these lines here. That indicates that you're going to loop around and do this bypass up here. And that bypass would be used for winterization. There's no need to fill the hot water tank filled with multiple jugs of antifreeze. Simply bypass the hot water tank, pull the drain plug in a hot water tank, and then you can winterize your RV. Now also in this area we have your water pump. Now we have the same kind of valve style on the water pump as we do on the hot water tank. Those valve handles will need to be utilized in order to turn it to draw from your freshwater tank. Now I'm just going to pull this drawer out. Not sure if there's a better view here, but you can see we have 1, 2, and 3 valve handles. Basically, the way it is now is set up to draw from the freshwater tank. In order to utilize the fill tube, we would have to change positioning of this to this and this like this. And then it will draw from your antifreeze jug. So turn the other way, it'll draw from the antifreeze jug. The way it is now, it'll draw from the onboard freshwater tank. I apologize, that's a hard one to get at and a hard one to really see clearly. So turning around from there, we'll take a look at your refrigerator now. This refrigerator will operate on an auto mode, a gas mode, or an electric only mode. You can filter through by using these capacitive touch buttons. Now you see a red light came on instead of the green one. That's because it's set to electric and I'm not plugged in, I'm running off battery at the moment. The same will happen with the gas. If you set it to run off gas and there's either no gas or the valves are closed, it'll try to light and then you'll see a red light come up to indicate that it did not function properly. Another important thing to talk about in this area is your Gfci plug. Your Gfci plug is here. Anything on the load side of it, if it gets tripped, will not be functional. Anything that would be on the load side would be anything around water, your outside plugs, plug in your bathroom most likely. They will be purposefully added to the load side of the Gfci in order to protect them. So if you're noticing any of those plugs aren't working, come here and hit this reset button and see if that doesn't fix your problem. So as we come over here, we're going to take a moment to speak about your carbon monoxide propane detector right here. You'll see right now it's got this fancy green light on there. That is actually to indicate that the system is working and functioning properly. There's also right above that green button, there's a button, or green light, sorry, there's a button that you can press in order to test the system. When you press the button, you'll hear a series of loud beeps. The green light will go from green to red, and once it's done going through all its tests, it'll go back to being a solid green light, and there will be no more noise, and that will indicate that it is functioning properly. There is the odd time that this will go off, and it shouldn't. One of the main culprits of that is painting. So if you're painting around it, the fumes from the paint can set this off. Just be aware of that. Now it's important that we test this every so often. So I usually find the easiest way to remember to test it is to test it when you check your smoke detector or change the batteries in your smoke detector. It's usually recommended that we do that every 6 months at daylight savings time, or when we change the clocks anyways. So I would suggest at the same time as we change the batteries and test our smoke detector, we come over here and press the button just to make sure this is functioning properly. Alright, if we look just up from that, we have your thermostat. So this thermostat has a power button. You press and hold for a couple seconds, it'll turn it on. Then you can cycle through your different options from cool, heat, dry, and fan. And then to turn the system off again, you press and hold the power button. Then you can use these buttons here to cycle through your options of high or low fan or auto, as well as your temperature. Now, when you are using your air conditioner, you'll note that there are baffles on the bottom of the inside portion of it. When the baffles are closed like this, it'll force the majority of the air out through these various ports located around the RV. With the baffles open, however, it will allow the majority of the air just to fall directly right here. Take a little look at your bathroom. Nice large shower, lots of light with the skylights. And as an example, you see that we have a receptacle here. If the Gfci is tripped, this is on the load side of that plug, so this would not be functional. Just make our way into the main bedroom here. You'll see that we have a mounting position for a bracket for a television in a bedroom, as well as a 120 volt power supply, 12 volt supply, and a cable or satellite output. Also in the bedroom, we have a USB charging port on both sides of the bed here, as well as 120 volt power. And then we have the same thing over there on that side. We also have this neat little feature where you can look down in or get access to your front storage compartment from here. This also has underbed storage supported with props. It makes it much easier to access your underbed storage. You also note we have these drawers here, which is neat, and drawers here. Also in the bedroom, we have an emergency exit. This functions by pressing down on the black tab, push the red handle towards the wall until it pops out. Bring it fully perpendicular to the wall of the RV. Push the handle all the way out of the window. Once all the way out, you can pull the red tab on the screen, remove the screen and you can escape to safety. Thank you for watching our orientation video. There's lots of neat features and items to look at in these RVs. So please accept my apology if for whatever reason I've missed anything that was important to you. I hope that I didn't, but if that's the case, give us a call. We'd be happy to answer any questions that we can. Otherwise, I hope I answered them all with this video and you feel comfortable with your new RV. Thank you.